How y'all doing? Well, this is going to be another slideshow here showing off some of my miniatures I just now fully finished painting. I did a video before this earlier where it's just before they were painted, just showing them off. Now they're fully painted. I'll show a slideshow of how they look before and after. And a little word about these. I got these from Ironwood Metals, and the reason why I got these because they had a nice good old-fashioned look about them. When you go to any gaming store and look at the all the games, role-playing, board games, fantasy art, most of them have this, I won't say most of them, but a good chunk of them has this cartoonish, exaggerated look that, to me, is not where I would have gone art design-wise, especially when you got into things like D&D, miniatures, stuff like that, from the 90s, when I got started. So much of what you see today has this exaggerated facial features, impractical armor and weapons designed to look jagged, or they're way massive than any person can actually carry. I know it's a fantasy, but still, Warhammer does not have to be this big around at the head just to do any major damage. Most Warhammers were, very small. They were already pretty dense to begin with. But they figured, it's this sort of idea that in order to sense the how powerful these things are, they need to be, they need to look badass in order to be badass. In order for something to cut a stone in half, it's got to have a blade this wide, and all this, and it's got to be 6 feet long. I can only tolerate that to an extent. Granted, I love the anime and manga series Berserk, where the main character Guts has a sword like that, but he's an exception. But now in fantasy, it's just a general rule. These miniatures right here, as you can see, were started off looking more like actual traditional medieval armor, like from this book right here. And personally, I think if you're going to make a fantasy world and you want to derive yourself, that's where you probably want to start. Look at real life, where it comes from, and then from there exaggerate, derive from that. So much of fantasy, in gaming in particular, they take one form of fantasy armor, then derive from that, and exaggerate and derive from that, exaggerate, derive from that, and that's where you get all that ridiculous look. I told this to one guy, and he, in a gaming store, says, well, that's just what's selling right now, which doesn't make sense to me. It's not a matter of, usually you have a choice in the artwork. The designers make it, and usually people like the game mechanics and stuff like that to get into it. Again, I can find exceptions to where I can have no problem with any of this, but it seems so flooded with this. In fact, look at D&D 5th edition. A lot of artwork has what I'm explaining here, and if you take a look at some of the artwork, it was never short of that to begin with. Back in the 80s and 90s, especially in the 90s, when we had Larry Elmore, Jeff Easley, Keith Parkinson, Fred Fields, Brom, Tony Baxa, Tony Dieterlizzi. Dieterlizzi was a bit exaggerated, but he had his own consistent style with it. But again, Clyde Caldwell is another one. All these were great artists, and you take a look at their artwork while it's set in a fantasy world, and the people look like people. They dress, they dress in a fantasy world, but it's not like giant shoulder blades where if you just lift your arms up, they'll crush your head, that sort of thing. And that's why I got miniatures like, I'm almost digressing here, but that's why I got miniatures like this. A good classic look for any fantasy game you want to put into that doesn't look like World of Warcraft. So there you go. Check them out. I'll link them down below. I don't have the names of them here, but they have a little search engine on their site. Fair warning, if you it's first time here, it's a bit of an older site. They don't keep it up like Games Workshop and all that. But on the let's see, be on your left hand side, there's the categories right here, and on the other side, there's a search engine. So you type in knight and see their selections of what they have, mage, that sort of thing, and hopefully you find something that you like, and they're pretty affordable. These guys right here mostly cost like $4.25 for pewter miniatures. Now, they're slightly smaller scale, about 28 millimeters, but for when you put them on the board, paint it up, put a little base on them so they don't tip over so easy. That's a kind of a flaw that they have. They can serve for any purposes for any games. Most miniatures, like say Reaper miniatures or and what have you, they can go up to about $7 for a human-sized miniature. A little bit less for smaller, obviously more if you're paying a larger one. This one, these are some good old classic miniatures from the 80s and 90s and on up, and still make some new ones here every few months or so. And you take a look around, you might find something that you like, and if you like that old school affordable metal miniatures, check this out. Thank you all for watching. Enjoy the slideshow. You have a nice day.